Good, man. Yourself?
Doing well, man.
How's the syndicate?
It's good, man. We're growing. We got a pretty tight group right now. We got like 7 or 8 guys. A couple of them just got their first deals locked up. One got a fucking home run deal. Yeah, it's out in it's like this huge land deal they got in out in Georgia. It's like they got under 1.1, and this they got like all the appraisals and stuff back at like it's worth like 3. I'm thinking that might still be a little high, but it's a huge spread. So they got a verbal offer already, like 500, 600K over. And literally just started, like brand new. I'm like, fuck, man, I wish my deal was that big. My first deal was that big. Like,
How much?
It's like they got like 500, 600K spread.
Man, look at that.
Yeah.
How did you find the deal?
Just texting. Yeah, using my CRM. They're just texting, and they just that the guy didn't want to sell that one. They asked if he had any other properties, and yeah, he's like, I got a bunch of land. Like,
okay.
Yeah, excited about it. But cool. So let's hop into it. For everyone who doesn't know who Mr. Hustle is, Michael Llanas, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So again, my name is Mike. I go by AKA Mr. Hustle, and been doing real estate investing for about 10 years. Me and my partner Charles been investing for 10 years. Done a lot in those 10 years. Personally done over 1,000 wholesale deals, hundreds and hundreds of sub-twos, hundreds and hundreds of flips. Dabble in multifamily, dabble in Airbnb. And that's pretty much in a nutshell. When it comes to real estate investing, is wholesaling is the big operation, and subject twos. Those two things are probably our primary exit strategies or our primary investments. The wholesaling operation, we just got it down to a T. Huge business operation with 18 people on staff. We make 1 million calls a month. So that part's ongoing. And then number 2 is the sub twos. So Charles and I, we did our first sub 2 about 9 years ago. I know sub 2 right now is a hot trend. But yeah, sub 2s and wholesale is our forte, if you will.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, so basically how this usually goes. So I know we got some people on here now. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. So I'm going to have some questions. We'll do the interview, record the podcast, and then at the end, we're going to go and make sure we get all your questions answered. But we see a few people hopping on. Appreciate all you guys hopping on. So yeah, man, that's great, man. It's wild. I mean, I love your operation. I love seeing you got your stories and all the content you put out, and it seems like you guys just have like tremendous energy, at the office all the time. So
Sure.
definitely want to get into that. But yeah, how did it start? How did you like first get started, and how did you get to where you're at now?
So it started 10 years ago, man. I was actually in the military. So I was in the Army. And in my 8th year in the Army is when I bought my first house, right? And when I bought my first house, I went through the motions of walking the property and checking it out, right? Going through the motions. I thought it was pretty cool. And Charles, who's my partner, actually helped me buy my first house back then, about 10, 11 years ago. After that, I thought nothing of it, man. Didn't think much of it. I went back to Army style. I was fully committed. I planned on doing 20 years in the military. And Charles kept telling me, hey, man, you should consider real estate. And I was like, man, real estate is not for me. I'm going to do military. That's all I know. I joined the military 3 days after high school, right? So 3 days after high school, I went to the Army, straight to basic training. And I was just so gung-ho, so focused on the military and, retiring with the military, all the benefits it had. But he kept hounding me, saying, hey, man, real estate is where it's at. I think you'd be really good at it. After probably about a few months, he says, hey, man, let me pay for your real estate license. Check it out. So if someone's going to pay for me for something, I'm never going to turn out free money.
Right.
So got my license, went through the motions, got it done like in 2-3 months. So far, so good. And then when I did my first deal, that's when something clicked in my head. Right? Something clicked in my head when I did my first transaction. When you're a realtor, and let's say here in San Antonio, your average house is about $200,000. 3% commission is $6,000. Right? So when I did my first transaction, I hit that $6,000 paycheck. That's when something hit in my head. It's like, man, I can see myself doing this. What spawned on me was in the military, and this is kind of where the whole Trump the hustle came from. In the military, I could be the best soldier. I could be the strongest soldier, the best shooting soldier, the one who's always on time, the one who's always fit. And the guy next to me could be the worst soldier, but if we're the same rank, we're going to get the same salary. We're going to get the same pay at the end of the year. So when I did my first real estate deal, that's when it hit my head. It's like, man, if I turn up the hustle, I can make more money. And it really just took off to me, man. So my first year as a rookie realtor, I did 55 transactions while I was still in the military. And that's very unheard of, man. Most realtors, don't get nowhere near that, especially while I was still active duty.
Damn.
And that's kind of where it went from there, man. It went from the military. So I'll be honest with you, I blew a lot of money, right? I blew a lot of money when I first got those realty commissions. Wasn't used to it. I had my salary coming in, so no big deal. And when that paycheck was coming in, I blew it a lot of it. Dumb stuff, right? Jewelry, cars, clothes, whatever the case is. But I feel like I did a reel the other day that went viral. There's a lot of feedback. A lot of feedback is, I don't know, people look at me as a guru or influencer, if you will. My response was, go ahead and do it, man. If you make money, blow it. I say it depends where you come from, right? Where I come from very humble beginnings. I didn't have, money growing up. So I blew a lot of that money, but I feel like I got it out of my system, right? Once I got it out of my system, I was like, all right, now I understand. I understand how much money I made. I understand how much I blew, right? I took care of those, humble beginnings issues, right? I think that's why some people, especially like myself, are a little more materialistic, right? The diamond necklace, the iced out Rollie, the Lamborghini. I think it just comes from where I grew up from. Now, after I spent the money, then I started saving it. And then Charles and I started flipping houses, and then went from a whole flipping operation to a wholesale operation to where we're at today.
That's badass, man.
Yeah.
I love that. So how'd it go? Like, so it was just you and Charles. How'd it go from you guys started hiring people? How do you guys got a team of killers too, man? How'd you guys find those people? How'd you build and start scaling?
So Charles and I, 2-man operation. We actually had our office in his home office. Like, man, it was like 250 square feet next to this guy for about a year and a half. And we're just so gung-ho focused on flips. So back then, we were doing a lot of flips, right? We were doing flipping properties, and we were using our own money, right? No creative financing, especially 10 years ago. We were using our own money. And, we had I want to say our first wholesale deal. That's where I'm going to lead into the operation. We had about 3-4 flips going, all with our own money. And then we got another deal that came to us. I'm like, man, that's a really good deal, but we don't have the money because we already have 4 flips going. And then we heard about this wholesaling, man. There has to be a way where we can just tack on a fee. So back then I said, hey, I like that house. I call my buddy and say, hey, man, I got a deal for you. You can't tell me you want to flip. There's this house. We're selling for 100. I think I told him 110. And the guy bought it, and we made a quick 10 grand wholesale fee. I was like, man, I was telling Charles, that's pretty easy, man. No hammer, no contractors, no nails, no money, no paint, no issues, no debt. We made a quick 10 grand. I was like, so that was cool. Thought nothing of it. About a month goes by, another deal comes to us. I was like, man, let's try this again. So we did the same thing. We wholesaled again. We made like 15, 20 grand. And our mindset went from flipping houses to let's focus on this wholesale. And that's where wholesaling came from, right? So then we started wholesaling, got really good at it, and people naturally just kind of came to us, right? We never put out an ad. We never did anything to say, hey, we're going to open up an operation. To be honest, it was never even in the vision to have an office of acquisition agents, disposition agents. Back then, 8 years ago, it wasn't really a thing that someone's going to open up a wholesaling operation. So it kind of just came with the motions. I think there's a lot of companies who've been doing this for long as us, and I think they're all on the same page. No one's ever had a vision to, hey, let's create a wholesaling operation. It just kind of went with the flow, right? And we didn't understand wholesaling, and it's like, all right, how much can I wholesale? How much can Charles wholesale? And then people started, gravitating towards us. Hey, man, I see you guys doing all kinds of deals. How can I get involved? And next thing you know, went from 1 person to 2 people, and we just always, every single day, try to dial it in to get more systems in place, more processes in place, to get more streamlined, if you will. And that's kind of where it led to today, from me and Charles and a 2-man operation to where we're at now with 18 individuals on staff.
That's great, man. So yeah, let's dive in. Let's get into the sub 2, and that's what everybody wants to learn about. So can you explain for people who don't know what subject 2 is?
So sub 2, my personal favorite, right? So here at HP Solutions, man, we still flip, we still wholesale. We still do syndications with apartments, Airbnbs, rentals, owner financing. We do it all over Texas. But my number 1 strategy would always be sub 2. When I first heard about it 8, 9 years ago, I was like, man, it just dawned on me, like, why would a seller do that? When you first hear sub 2, where I'll purchase the property subject to the seller's financing staying in place, meaning, hey, the loan stays in your name, but the house is in my name. I couldn't grasp the concept. Like, man, nobody would do that. Ain't no reason why someone would say, hey, go ahead and take my house and I'll take the financial responsibility. Until we actually went through the motions. And when we did a lot of wholesaling back then, and we knocked on the door, and someone gave us a referral and said, hey, we want to sell our house, and they just bought it. I was like, man, that's where the prime sub-2 came in. Back then, there was also no YouTube, right? There's no YouTube. There's no sub-2 courses. There's no sub-2 gurus. So we went through the motions back and forth with title companies, real estate attorneys, just kind of common sense, thinking about, hey, the deed's already in their name, yada, yada. We looked into the do-on-sell clause. And we made it happen. So for those guys who aren't too familiar with sub-2, is we'll purchase a property subject to the financing staying in place. Meaning if Kai owns a property, he went through the motions of Wells Fargo, got approved for a loan, and let's just say 6 months into it, 12 months into it, now he needs to sell. Well, he can't really sell for a cash offer. Wholesaler is not going to be your key point here, right? Even your realtors, because your realtors are going to charge 6% commission, title policy, title fees, selling contributions, and especially if Kai just bought a new build, right? So now he's competing with new builders. So we specialize in the last few years on finding sellers who need to sell but can't sell. And we'll come up with this offer of the subject to. And people ask so many questions, how do, is it legit? How do you go through the motions? How do you find these people? How do we maintain them? So, but over the span of 10 years, Charles and I have been very fortunate. And we currently hold 119 sub-2s.
Damn.
And that's it, man.
That's badass. So how do you, explain to the seller, how do you approach that conversation? Like, I know you kind of just ran through real quick, but.
So people ask me, man, how do you pitch? That's a hard pitch. Someone said it's not a hard pitch. Unless the seller is really, really motivated and needs to get out, which is cool, right? Because we have a lot of those too. Seller just says, hey, I got sellers who crying at the closing table. Mike, thank you for doing this. I've had sellers said, hey, once I pitch my sub-2, how much is it going to cost me? I had people even offer to pay me money to take over the property. And I think it all comes with the pitch, right? When it comes to the pitch, it's a lot, right? So over the span of 10 years, I fully understand how to communicate to a seller where if I know that their best bet is a sub-2, I'll go through the motions, right? Say, hey, this is the offer. This is what we can do. You called us because we're investors. You called us because we buy houses cash. But over the last 10 years, I took everyone's rebuttals, everyone's objections, right? Everyone's thoughts, frequently asked questions from sellers, and I put it in my pitch. So when I'm pitching, by the time I'm done with the pitch, I know there's no questions because I answered them all. And those questions are, what does it do for me? How long does the loan stay in my name? How do I know you're going to make the payments? Can I buy another house? What happens if you die, which is me? What happens if you go bankrupt? So take all those into consideration, put into the pitch, and by the time it's done, these guys are ready to go.
Yeah, I love that. And I've been lucky enough to that one Vegas deal where I got to hear your pitch, and I'm like, oh, this is fire, man.
That's right. Yeah.
Salesman. But
the pitch is important, right? So the pitch, what I like to do is, what's the proper word I'm looking for? I like to do the takeaway method, if you will. The takeaway method is, if you're already considering sub-2, that means you already considered wholesaling. Wholesaling probably won't work, right? So if they owe $200,000 and your offer is $180, it's not going to work, right? So you already know wholesaling is out the way. So when it comes to the sub-2, I'll tell the seller, hey, Mr. Seller, hey, have you thought about putting your house for rent? What's their motivation, right? Their motivation. Let's just say we're in San Antonio, and their motivation is they're moving to a different city. So Kai, you're moving to Houston. You want to sell this house. That's why you called me. But Kai, have you considered renting it, man? I saw your mortgage statement. It's $1,500. The rental's around $1,600, $1,700. You can cash flow about $100, $200. But Kai, think about it. But at the same time, when you go to Houston, you're A, going to buy another house, or B, you're going to get into rental. If these tenants don't pay, are you in a position to cover that payment? Because you definitely want to hit your credit report. So technically, Kai, you might have 2 payments. Right, Kai, being the regular seller, regular consumer, not an investor, may not be in a position to make 2 payments if necessary. Doesn't really want to be a landlord. Will love to probably try to do it, right? Most common sense for Kai is, let me try to own a house. Let me have a tenant pay for it. But when you not as a scare tactic, but just kind of realization. Kai, if you put it on the market and it doesn't rent for 2 months, one, you guys make those 2 months of payments while you're still making that Houston payment. 2, repairs is on you. Or 3, if they don't make the payments, you got to evict them. That could be a hassle, right? So that's 1. Kai, you don't even need to worry about it. You can also do with the property management company, but they're going to charge 10%, and that kind of eats into the profits. So that'll be the first thing, right? The second thing is, Kai, have you thought about Airbnbs? Because you're close to Sea Road is actually a really good location for Airbnbs. They can make great income. That's the give. And then the takeaway is, but don't forget, you also have to furnish the entire house, right? You have to maintain it. And of course, if it doesn't rent, you still got to make those 2 payments. And then I'll dabble in owner financing. Talking a little bit about owner financing. Not too much because, again, Kai's a normal consumer, prior to savvy when it comes to real estate investing. So I'll say, Kai, there's actually a third option where you can owner finance it. You can sell the house on a wraparound. You can get a small down payment and collect cash flow. But again, Kai, if they don't make the payments, it goes back on you, right? And then my last option is, hey, I have an offer for you. We can buy houses cash. I can buy your house cash. However, you just bought yours 6 months ago for $250, and your house is your own comp, right? When we look at comps, your house is the comp, so it's still around $250. And let's just say you did a VA loan and you owe $248. Obviously, there's no way we can do a cash offer, right? If I am going to buy cash, which I can, I rather just buy the builder's house because it's brand new. No one's ever lived in it. I get to pick my colors, my granite colors, all that good stuff. However, Kai, we are at Home Selling Solutions. I do have a solution for you, and then that's when I go into the sub 2 pitch. When the sub 2 pitch is done, I like to be transparent and say, hey, once they agree to sub 2, Kai, remember I told you can do rental, Airbnb, or owner finance? Well, I'm already considering doing those owner finance. I just want to keep them in the loop, right? Especially because back then what I would do is I sub 2 it, I'll put it right back on the MLS, owner financing. So Kai house is $250. I'll put on the MLS for $275. Kai would see, hey man, I thought my house had no equity or something for $275. So I just want to keep them in the loop, and that's how it works. But it's been so far so good.
I love that. That's great. So why, just to run through people, for people, why do the wrap or do the owner finance instead of keeping it as a rental yourself?
So back then we did a lot of owner finance. Anyone who's watching, I would highly recommend, if you're in a position, to keep them as rentals.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So why did I do a lot of owner financing back then? So remember I told you we have 119.
Mm-hmm.
And 119, a good 80% of them are wraps, right? So we sub 2 and we sold them on a wrap. Now the reason I did it back then is because back then I was looking at pre-mortgage foreclosures. And when you look at pre-mortgage foreclosures, they're behind, let's just say 10, 12 grand in payments, right? The seller wants about 5 grand to walk away from moving costs and, first month's rent an apartment or something. So that's already 15 grand. The house could use about 5 grand on work, right? Touch up, some clean carpets, whatever the case is. So now we're all in 20 grand. So it's going to cost me 20 grand to do this deal. So I will do the transaction, 10 grand to catch up, 5 to the seller, 5 for rehab. I'm all in 20. Well, back then, I wasn't established financially like I am today. If I was out of pocket 20 grand, I want that 20 grand back. So what I would do, I'll put on the MLS and I'll put $25,000 down. When I put that $25,000 down, I will get my money back with cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I try as hard as I can to keep each one as a rental, right? They both have their pros and cons, right? Pros of a wraparound is you don't have to worry about the property. You're not a landlord. You're the bank. You're just collecting. It's on automatic cash flow. We say we make income 3 times on the property, 1 on the down payment, 2 on the cash flow, and 3 on the equity on the back end. So that's cool. However, if I had 80 houses from 10 years ago that I was collecting as rentals, the appreciation for all those 80 houses really went up. So if I was to liquidate the portfolio and I had tenants paying the balance down, the value of each house going up, times that by 80, there's a lot of money to be made there. Mm-hmm. But again, when you first get started, you got to make sense, right? If I'm in my pocket 20 grand, I need that money back to continue operations.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, so I know you mentioned a few as far as who is the perfect sub 2 seller or who is that person. I know you mentioned some new homes are good ones. They just bought recently. They don't really have equity. Are there any other trigger points or things that a seller says or the seller situation that makes you think, hey, I'm going to go sub 2 on this one?
So a lot of things is as wholesalers, right? Because there's a lot of wholesalers watching too. A lot of wholesalers, they target a list where, there's a lot of equity, right? I want to target a list where sellers own the house for 10 years and there's 60% equity. When we were targeting sub 2s, we would do the other way around, right? When I get the pre-mortgage foreclosures, I would target everyone who bought the house within the last 12 months or the last 24 months. As a wholesaler, I think the easiest list to get is a pre-mortgage foreclosure. So a lot of wholesalers thinking, all right, I need to buy really low because I have to add a wholesale fee to make some money. So they're finding those, older houses that were from 10, 12 years ago, but everybody's targeting those guys. Everyone's door knocking, everyone's sending them letters. Nobody was targeting the guys. Oh, I'm not going to call this dude because he just bought this 12 months ago. There's no equity. That's how I started with the sub two game. I would go knock on the door and give them an offer. While everyone else was targeting those guys, I was targeting these guys. It was just so easy to get sub two deals. So pre-mortgage foreclosures for sure. Unfortunately, it's not that we target military, but military really fits the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Military really fits the bill, right? I did 12 years in the Army. When you go somewhere, you're typically there for 3 years, right? If you're there for 3 years, that first year as the veteran, the soldier, they're going to move to San Antonio. They're not going to buy the first year because they don't know San Antonio. They're going to rent, understand the city, right? What parts of town they want to live in. By the time that first year leases up, and that second year, they're going to buy the house. One in the next year, they're going to go somewhere else. Hawaii, Germany, Korea. And a lot of people do not want to deal with real estate, especially if it's soldiers who are paycheck to paycheck. Military, VA loans, divorce. A lot of our portfolio came from divorce, where a husband and wife qualify for the loan. Husband income and wife income together, they qualify for the house, and next thing you know, they're going to get divorced. Husband can't afford it, wife can't afford it, so they're just going to let it go. So a lot of divorce. So military, divorce, and pre-mortgage foreclosures, for sure, your top three.
Nice. Oh, that's great. It makes a lot of sense. So what are the biggest mistakes people make when they first trying to start pitch sub two or first trying to get into sub two?
Education, explaining what a sub two is. People get so antsy that they're going to get the first sub two deal, or I can't believe I'm pitching a sub two, kind of get nervous and think about themselves versus thinking about the seller. And so you can buy another house. People don't get that confused all the time. You can't buy another house. Mr. Seller, you don't want a foreclosure in your name. You're behind 18 grand. I'll catch up your payments so you won't get a foreclosure. I'll be making those monthly payments, so you're going to be good to go, right? So your credit score will improve. To really educate the seller, hey, I'll put 2-3 grand in your pocket for moving expenses versus you just losing the house. Versus the other way around, hey, Mr. Seller, get out, and I'll take over the payments. Really take consideration of the seller. Remember, you want them on your side. We're here for sellers. I mean, as a real estate investor, yeah, the goal is to make money, but at the same time, we need to help sellers because that's what we do. Problem solvers, if you will, right? If I can solve someone's problem and make money, it's a 2-for-1 deal.
That's great. Now, I know everyone's always worried about the due on sale clause. Can you kind of explain what that is and what you guys do to mitigate that risk?
The number one reason why a lot of people do not want to do sub twos is the due on sale clause, right? You guys don't know what the due on sale clause is. We're going with Texas, right? A lot of the states, there's 50 states. A lot of states are similar to Texas, where there's a deed of trust, right? The majority of the states have deed of trust states. What a deed of trust state is, if I or Kai, right, gets approval of Wells Fargo, and Kai gets pre-approved for a loan for 300 grand. Kai goes buy a house. When he signs those documents to Wells Fargo, he'll make a deal with the seller. Retail, right? We're talking about retail. There's rules are involved. You make a deal with the seller. Now you own the house. When you sign those documents to Wells Fargo, they're signing a deed of trust. What that deed of trust is, hey, Wells Fargo, thanks for giving me the deed to the house. I'm signing this deed of trust document so you can trust me with the deed that I will make the payments. If I don't make the payments, I allow you to foreclose on me. So that's the deed of trust. Now, in that deed of trust, there's a paragraph in there that talks about the due on sale clause. The due on sale clause is Wells Fargo saying, hey, Kai, if something were ever happened to the title, we may call the note due. When I say we may call the note due, for example, if you owe 220 grand and we see that the title changed for whatever reason, we can say, hey, we want our 220 grand now. That's the due on sale clause. So a lot of people get scared of sub twos because of that. Now, in 10 years, it's only happened to us about 3 times. So don't take that into such a big risk factor. In 10 years, 3 times out of hundreds and hundreds of sub twos. The 119 is what we're holding currently. A lot of them sold, a lot of them refinanced. So think about that number. That's a really strong number. We're talking about 1.5% of a chance, right? 2% of all the portfolio ever got the due on sale clause. Now, there's ways around it. That prevent it. First thing first is there's no such thing as due on sale jail, right? It's not illegal to do a sub two. You're not going to go to jail. And if they do call the note due, you have time. It's not like they're going to call the house next week. They're going to take the house back. If you don't pay up or if you don't fix the situation, they're going to have to go through the proper motions of foreclosing because you're not performing. So when it comes to due on sale, the banks really just want their payments on time. If you make those payments on time, they can really care less for the most part. When it comes to due on sale, I will tell you this. If it's a credit union, we won't own or finance those properties.
Mm.
If it's a credit union, we'll keep them as a rental or Airbnb. People usually ask why. As a credit union, they keep all their files in-house. So they're more likely to audit their files. If they see a change, they'll more than likely call it note due. So what I hate, those three that we had in the last 10 years, one of them is I substituted, right? I caught up the lady's loan. She was current. She was good to go. And I sold the house to a family who put down $35,000. They made the payments on time for about 2 years straight. So the family I sold it to put down 35 grand, 2 years of payments, no issues, and now they call the note due. So who's that factor here? The factor is one, the original seller, because it's going to affect their credit if they foreclose.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the family who had nothing to do with it for the most part, put down 35 grand and made the payments on time for 2 years. So what we did is we paid off the note ourselves. Now, fortunate enough, we're in position to do so, right? We paid off the note ourselves and took care of that issue. Now, for someone who freaks out, Mike, with the balance on the house, I think at the time was like 150 grand. I don't have 150 grand laying around. There's still ways to make this happen, right? One, you can sell the note, right? If you sell the note, that's the majority of the deal. Hey, I sold this house to this family with an 8% interest rate. They put down 35 grand. It's seasoned for 2 years. That's a strong note. You can always sell the note to pay off the lender. You can always do title changes. We can get into the weeds and all this, but there's so much that goes into it. Some real estate attorneys would suggest putting it into a land trust. Some real estate attorneys says, hey, that doesn't even really matter. But us, today's market, what we're doing, if I'm substituting it, I'll put it into a land trust. Each property.
So what is a land trust? Can you explain that?
So a land trust is its own entity, right? It's its own entity. So, if I'm going to substitute Kai's house and Kai owes 123 Main Street, we're going to create a land trust called 123 Main Street Land Trust. That's its own entity, like an LLC. It's its own incorporation. Once we create the land trust, Kai will then deed the house to the land trust. Now the land trust owns the house. And then Kai will sign over the beneficial interest to me. Now I own the land trust that owns the house. What the bank sees, if they were to audit the file, hey, the deed was in Kai's name, and now the deed's in 123 Main Street Land Trust. If the bank were to question it, I'm the trustee. I said, hey, bank. See, the bank can tell you not to do, switch out the deeds, right? But the bank can't tell you not to do estate planning. And that's how you want to plan your estate. If Wells Fargo were to call the no due and say, hey, Wells Fargo, what's up? My name's Mike. I'm the trustee for 123 Main Street Land Trust. Kai still owns interest in the property. Here's the document. He just put it into a land trust and I'm the trustee. Now, there is a third document that we don't show Wells Fargo. Is when I give it to me. So that's one way of really protecting ourselves, a blanket, if you will.
That makes so much sense. I like that. Just doing some estate planning. That's great.
Yeah, but they can't do that, man. So just like when a husband and wife gets divorced, right? When a husband and wife gets divorced, they own the house together. If the house gets awarded to the wife, the loan's still in the husband's name, right? The judge can say, hey, the house belongs to the wife, but the judge can't tell Wells Fargo, hey, take the husband off the loan. It's still going to be on there. Same thing, right? There's rules and regulations. So Wells Fargo can't say you cannot do estate planning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's great. So I know we said education is really one of the biggest shortcomings people have. I know you do a whole bunch of trainings, a whole bunch of stuff on Sub 2, and have a huge event coming up. What's the best way for people to get educated? What's the best way for people to start learning more about this?
When it comes to Sub 2 Direct, I mean, I don't want to make it a pitch fest, but I mean, we do have a Sub 2 course, right? The Sub 2 course is a 9-hour course. It's me personally, everything you need from start to finish, how to pitch, even from private financing, right? So at one point, I think we bought like 9 or 10 Sub 2s all at once. Let's just say they all require about $20,000, right? It's about $20,000 each times 10 properties or 10 deals. That's 200 grand. I show how I use private investors money to make money on their deals. So I can buy these properties. And I think that's also what kind of escalated us to get this big portfolio that we have is by using other people's money. So the sub two course that we have is 9 hours long, A to Z, everything you need, our contracts, our documents, our checklist. I also have a 30 minutes Q&A with my real estate attorney who closes all of my sub two transactions. We talk about wraps, we talk about exit strategies, we're playing with the sellers. And then when you're done with that, I'll spend 1 hour with you on a Zoom call to make sure you fully understand the sub two. That's that. I mean, we also have things like the Alliance. The Alliance is our online private community. We meet every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're not really just talking about sub twos. We're talking about everything we do, from wholesaling to flipping to operations. But there's a lot of education out there. I mean, there's even, a big solid one is Pace Morgan, right? Everyone knows Pace when it comes to sub two. Sub two Nation with them. It's really out there, right? It's really out there. My attorney, Allison Tipton, she also has a sub two course to get your feet wet. When it comes to sub two, to me, the easiest, fastest way to create a portfolio with no money, no credit. I mean, like I said, I'm very fortunate to have all these houses. If you were to pull my debt, there's no debt in my name because I bought all these houses using other sellers. I buy the seller's house using the seller's money. That's what I like to say. And that's just the best way, man. It really is. So it made, with the sub twos that we started 8-9 years ago, really create the foundation to where we are today. Allow me to do other stuff like the nightclub and the restaurant and all the other stuff that we got going on. So it's a really good tool, man.
That's great, man. I love that. Now, are you guys, for the deals you're getting now, the sub twos, are they mostly off market? Do you guys do on market sub two deals too?
So let's just say out of the last 10 sub two deals, they all come from, a lot of them, out of the last 10, probably about a good 7 of them come from wholesalers. Wholesalers got it. Hey, I know this is a sub two deal. I got the mortgage statement. I don't know how to close it. Mike, can you help me out? So I'll say for sure, if a wholesaler can at least pitch primarily, hey, Mr. Seller, this is what a sub two is. I think it's your best option. Are you even open to considering it? If so, can I get the mortgage statement? To me, that's a lead. I'm not fond of someone who calls me and say, hey, I think this could be a sub two. I want the wholesaler to learn and earn at the same time. So you need to be comfortable in that phone call and say, hey, you don't need to know the full ins and outs, but a good general information on what a sub two is. Offer that to the seller, and if you can get the mortgage statement, that shows that the seller's interested, and then bring it to me. Now, the most important key for me is the mortgage statement, right? The mortgage statement shows a lot. It shows who the lender is, the balance, the interest rates, the PITI, the maturity dates, what type of loan it is, the escrow, the homestead exemptions. I'll look on it, depending on the escrow, see what the payment's going to be. So it shows a lot. It shows how much they're behind. So if I can get that, would really help me analyze the transaction. So let's say the last 10, 6 or 7 of them come from wholesalers. Probably about 2 come from the office, the hustle zone, here with 18 cold callers. And then 1 will be past clients like realtors or MLS deals. My internet good?
Yeah. I think I can hear you fine. The audio is good.
I just had a little thing that says poor quality. But yeah, so wholesalers are still here in the office. Now, here in the office, when we have our cold callers cold calling, they understand sub twos. They understand sub twos. They understand creative financing. These guys, when they're cold calling, their first step is to offer cash so we can wholesale it. If that cash offer doesn't work for them, they're going to go into a sub two mode. After the sub two mode, if that doesn't work for them for whatever reason, they don't want the loan in their name, or whatever the case is, or there's a little equity to play with, we'll go to creative financing. When we go to creative financing, that doesn't work. We'll go to try to do innovation. Or what we're doing now is we're actually listing our wholesale deals on MLS. That kind of like innovation.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, we'll offer to list our property on the market at retail with our brokers. So that's each person's phone call: cash, sub two, creative financing, innovation, or list it as a wholesale, or list it traditionally with the realtors.
Nice. No, that's great. So yeah, man, that's super helpful. It makes a lot of sense. Now with the with what you guys are doing, I know you said you have the cold calls. What else are you guys doing for prospecting? What's working for you guys best right now in this market as far as reaching out to sellers and getting in front of as many sellers as you guys can? I
think a lot of people are still wary about cold calling. That's not doing as good as it was, or whatever the case is. But I would say, man, that's the majority of our deals come from cold calling. Cold calling is where it's at for us. Cold calling is a lot of our business, a lot of self-generation. We really emphasize our guys to be heavily involved in social media, right? When this comes to social media, those guys get deals, JV deals. I mean, typically a month, we're getting about 30 contracts a month. I think right now we have like 46 contracts in escrow nationwide. The majority is in Texas. And at 46, I would say probably about a good 30 is Texas. The remaining 16 is nationwide. But yeah, SMS is still good, but our primary deal here is cold calling.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like any like KPIs or metrics that you make sure you guys hit as far as like number of dials per day or talk time, anything like that?
So I do, but not me personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got a guy in my office. His name is Frank Tovar. Frank Tovar is the CEO, handles all the operations, handles all the numbers. It's once you get to that next level of having 14 people cold calling, it's just so much. Because remember, we still have the portfolio, the apartment complexes. Charles and I are fortunate enough to have 542 doors as investors on apartment complexes. Um, the education, wholesale live is a big operation. The mentorship, the brokerage, the flips, the portfolios, the Airbnbs. So it's hard to put everything together. You really need a right hand guy, and our guy is Frank Tovar. Frank Tovar handles the day-to-day operations. If I can bring him in here, I can know who has the most talk times, what's their percentages looking like, what's their call ratio. All the numbers are really broken down into a huge dashboard per station per individual.
Mm.
Yeah, but top of my head, I don't know on top of my head. It would be my guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did Frank, did you hire him for that role? Did you build him up into that role? Like, did you like come up with you guys, or how'd that work?
Frank, yeah, that's a good question, man. Nobody asks about Frank, man. Frank is one of the guys, man, and in reality, runs the office but never gets the credit. Does that make sense? There's a lot of people in that position where he really doesn't want the limelight. There's a lot of people in that position for some reason. For them, they're cold behind the scenes. But I'll be honest, man. On this podcast, Frank's the one that really runs the office, and myself and Charles are the face of it. Of course, the ones that started the business and the investment part of it, and applying our experience and education to it. But when it comes to Frank was making six figures at his previous job, and he really wanted to get into real estate. He found us on social media. I want to say about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, and I was doing a Q&A panel where you're about to do that Geekdom, the Geekdom deal about 6 years ago, and I came up to. Supposedly he went to Charles because I looked more intimidating.
Yeah.
He went up to Charles because Charles looks more friendly. Charles talked to him, had him come into the office. And truth be told, man, when Frank came into the office, I really didn't pay him no mind for the first 2-3 months. I typically do that with everybody, to be honest. It's not a tactic. For what I do that here is one, there's a lot of different roles here. Charles handles acquisitions, right? So whatever it takes to acquire a deal, what lists we're calling, what VAs we're using, what systems, tools, operations. Charles handles all acquisitions. I handle dispositions, right? So when we first hired someone, they're always going to start with acquisitions. And Frank was coming for 2-3 months. I would see him in the corner of the office, learning, cold calling, trying to figure out the ropes. When I finally talked to the guy, I didn't realize he quit a six-figure job to come all in real estate based on the conversation that he had with Charles and what he saw within the office. After that, once I sat down with the guy and Charles sat down with the guy, knowing, hey, man, this guy actually has a business degree in business management through UTSA, I believe, ran some big companies, really understands process and systems, and it kind of just fit the mold, man. So it just went from acquisitions to like, hey, man, help us with this, to head to this, to now, CO.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't planned, but it just happened. So.
So is he like? So it sounds like he's just someone that they're consistently going above and beyond, like as he's working for you guys, and just what else can I help with?
Yeah, handles all operations, right? So he dabbles a little bit in the royalty side, the brokerage, the operations, numbers wise. We can make a lot of money, but you can also spend a lot of money, right? We can make a lot of money, but we can spend a lot of money. So his job is to understand, how much we're paying the VAs, how much is it actually. Now, when you go to a one-person show and on a wholesale, and you do your first wholesale deal and you make 10 grand, that wholesaler is happy, right? Kudos for you. You made 10 grand at a wholesale and out of nothing. But once you get into a big operation where there's 18 people on staff, then it turns to a business. When you turn to a business, I need to know, hey, if that deal made us 10 grand on that wholesale deal, how much did that deal cost us to make that 10 grand? People don't understand the true intricacies a business when you start doing it at a high level, right? If you're closing 20 deals a month, it sounds cool. Yeah, 10, 10, but how much is it costing?
Mm.
You know, if one, we're in this big office here, so one, the office costs money, right? You got to consider all the office, the marketing, the data, the list, the skip tracing, how much time we're spending these guys on educating them, the VAs, SMS, InvestLift, all the platforms that we use. Put that all into a system. How much money do we make? Divide that by per deal, and that's how much it's costing us per deal. So that's where you get into next level stuff, understanding the business, and now you need to know the health of the business. But as a wholesaler, when people starting off, yeah, they're making money. You're making money, do your deal. But once you're ready to get to that next level, have a 2-man show, 3-man show, fully focus on the business, not in the business.
Yeah, that's great, man. Appreciate you sharing. So the funny thing, I got a bunch of DMs and stuff, and people I was posting about this. Everyone's like, "Oh, that's the Ace of Stakes guy." That's the guy at Ace of Stakes, man. You want to talk about Ace of Stakes? What you're doing over there?
Ace of Stakes, yeah. Let me tell you about Ace of Stakes, man. Ace of Stakes. So I'm a big nightlife guy, man. I love going to the clubs, to be honest with you. To be honest, we actually have a show tonight with Sean Kingston. Sean
Yeah,
Kingston,
I saw that.
he's coming to the club tonight. So we're handling transportation and we're getting to the club. But I really want to open up a nightclub, man. I think for me, I've been doing real estate for 10 years. It's good. I love it. It's my daily deal. I wake up, I live, breathe real estate. But it got easy, if you will. It got easy. Everything's on autopilot. Frank runs the wholesaling operation. We're getting 20, 30 contracts a month. Disposing, acquisitions, and acquiring deals. Our flips are kind of on autopilot. Our Airbnbs is managed by my wife. She handles the Airbnbs. This year is when we first started finally using a property management company to handle the rentals. And I just got bored, man. I just got bored, and I really wanted to open up a nightclub. So I have a partner of mine, his name's Skyler. And our goal is to open up a nightclub, but it's really hard to open up a nightclub. One, there's a lot of cons that go with it. There's usually violence. There's usually drugs. The parking lot's a mess. There's throw up everywhere. It's just late operations, 2, 3 in the morning. So a lot of spots don't want a nightclub. The only people who will take a nightclub, there's already a nightclub in place. But those guys don't want to sell because it's such a lucrative business doing so. And then we went to a restaurant in Houston where it was a nightclub / restaurant put together. And there's not one in San Antonio. San Antonio, I believe, is the 7th largest city in the United States, 7th or 8th. But for being the 7th largest city in the United States, we're still behind on the times when it comes to cities like Miami, Vegas, Houston, Dallas, New York. We're still behind on times, a little more southern. So we opened up this restaurant called Ace of Steaks. It's a play on word of Ace of Spades. If you're familiar with champagnes, Ace of Spades, a real high-end champagne by Jay-Z. And when you go to the club, that's the baller bottle, right? I'll take the Ace of Spades. It's a gold bottle. It's usually about $1,000 at the club, depending on what club you go to. It's usually about $1,000. So we took Ace of Spades and put a play on of Ace of Steaks. And we got gold steaks, gold burgers. Different crowd for sure, right? It's a different crowd. It's not your normal stuffy steakhouse. It's a vibe. A lot of parties, a lot of birthday parties. We've had wedding proposals there. The grand opening was about 4 months ago. And that's kind of, to be honest with you, taking this operation, taking my military background, Scott is real business savvy, putting that all together. The restaurant, to be honest, is already typically kind of technically on autopilot.
That's badass.
A lot of feedback from people. Mike, you never owned a restaurant before. You never worked at a restaurant. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. It's on autopilot now.
Yeah.
I mean,
was that restaurant people giving you that advice, or just people in it?
Restaurant people giving that advice. And I just think to myself, Frank runs a business. I just need someone like Frank to run. So I need a chef, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, 4 months ago, the grand opening was 4 months ago, and I have 4 months of experience. So it's not like I'm an expert in restaurants, but I learned a lot in the last 4 months from front of the house, back of the house, the chef, the manager, and it's really, to me, it's kind of simple. The number one part is marketing, right? Marketing and letting the word out of what you are and what we're not. Right. So our first 3 months, we got a lot of feedback. Hey man, the music's too loud. There's a DJ there. We even got feedback from our hosts being a little too skimpy. But we just have to find our right niche. Say, hey, we're not your regular steakhouse. And the most important thing is marketing and social media.
Yeah, no, you
Oh, yeah.
guys kill it on social.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
did
love
see
those.
it on social media, and I gotta give a shout out to my guy, Don, man. Don made it. He's our guy, man, and he handles the social media for myself, Charles, HBHS, Ace of Steaks, the Desire Nightclub. Um, to really push that message, and that's important nowadays. You have to have that message pushed. But yeah, that's Ace of Steaks. You've been there, right? You've been there.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, we had after our event in February. Yeah,
Yeah.
you had us there. I think 40 grand open. I got to come back though, but no, it's an experience.
Very
It's not
different.
just a restaurant.
Yeah, you got the DJ. There's lights like in the nightclub. You got the bottle girls come on the sign, the sparklers. So good food, good music, good vibes.
Yeah, no, that
But
food's great.
it wouldn't allow me to do so if I didn't have 100 houses
Hmm.
catalog every single month. And now we're dabbling in car washes, and laundromats and all kinds of stuff. We're potentially open up a second bar downtown that's in the works. So it's a lot, but it all had to do with the foundation of real estate got me to where I'm at. It's on autopilot. Thanks to sub twos, I cash flow every single month, and I take that money and invest it.
I love that, man. And I see your post. You say you got like every one of your family members a house through sub to you.
Yeah, man. So last year, Wholesale Live, I wanted to do something big. I wanted to do something big for Wholesale Live. I'm just fortunate to be in this position. Again, I come from very humble beginnings. My dad has 9 kids. My dad has 9 kids, and I'm 7 of 9. So I figure myself lucky number 7. And none of my 9 kids, none of us went to college, right? I went to college. I got an associate's, not having nothing to do with real estate. So one of the first ones to get a degree. Um, everyone's, to be real about it, it's paycheck to paycheck, right? Everyone's paycheck to paycheck. So me really going to the status where I'm at, I just I take that into very good high regards, right? So first thing I did at Host Live, I took my mom on stage. Look at that, man! Isn't that a big coincidence? My mom's calling me. It's a big coincidence, right? And I paid off her house, right? And I paid off her house thanks to wholesaling, right? Wholesaling really, I mean, it's a good cash flow. It's a good system. You close a couple of deals, it can make you really, really good money. Um, Finding those houses that's been sitting there for years, right? I bought a house where a seller didn't even know they owned the house. I bought a house where they didn't sell it for years because brother and brother were against each other for years, and I played mediator, and now they're in good relationship. The house is behind them. They could care less. They sold it for less than market value. The relationship was important, and that's where this whole problem solving came from, right? So wholesale live, I paid off her house in front of everybody. She was very ecstatic, very happy. It was one of my most memorable moments for myself. Um, my sister got her into a house, into a sub two. It was a good start home. We fixed it up. She lived there for about 2 years. We listed it. She made good money. Got into a second home, much nicer. So now she's into her second sub two. My brother's got 2 houses already. Uh, and just all thanks to sub twos, man. My personal house is a sub two. Charles, his house is a creative finance sub two deal. So it's a lot, man. It's definitely a lot. It's easy. It's fast. It's a win-win situation. Seller wants out, right? And if I can put somebody in there, especially when it comes to my family, I mean, even the better, right?
Yeah,
So for example, my house was a guy who bought the house using a VA loan, which you guys don't know, a VA loan is the best way to do sub two deals. That's the best loan for sub twos. It was a VA loan. He was a truck driver, and he lived in the house for about 2 years. And then he got into a car wreck and had back problems. When he got back problems, he couldn't drive, wasn't making no money, couldn't make the payments. So when I got to the house, he was behind 18 grand, and he already moved out. He already moved out because he knew he was getting foreclosed in 2-3 weeks. Saved himself the embarrassment of the sheriff knocking on the door, hey, man, you got to get out. So he already accepted his fate. So when I told him about sub twos, he was all for it, man. 1, I saved his credit. 2, he didn't get a foreclosure. 3, I put a little bit of money in his pocket, so he's grateful for that. 4, our family moved into it. And it's a nice, beautiful house, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, 3-car garage, gated community, just shy of like 4,000 square feet. So it was a win-win situation. I mean, so it's good for him, it's good for us. Same thing with my brother, same thing with my sister, and then my mom's house paid off, man. So again, like we talked about Ace of Steaks, like we talked about the office, it all goes back to real estate is the foundation. Wholesale is good cash flow. Wholesale is good for income. Sub two is good for cash flow and appreciation. So you really got to marry the two. So everyone who's doing real estate, I hate when people pass on sub two deals because they don't know much about it. They don't fully understand it. If you have a tool, use a tool. If you don't understand it, partner with someone like myself or Kai and say, hey, I got this potential sub two deal. Kai, what do you need from me? Go through the motions and make something happen, right? We're wholesaling value here. We're not wholesaling houses, right? When I say we're wholesaling value, if you got a house under contract that's a lot of meat on the bones and I can flip it, that's value to me, right? If Kai has a sub two under contract and I can buy the house with no credit in my name, no debt in my name, that's value. Wholesale the deal to me. That's what we need. So everyone's watching, man. Make sure you understand sub twos, at least dabble in it, have an idea what it is, so you can partner with somebody and learn and earn at the same time.
I love that, man. But yeah, I was gonna say that was probably one of the coolest things I ever seen in my life. Was just you get last year wholesaling live, you having your mom on stage and you're telling her how it's paid off, man. That was inspiring as fuck for me, man. So, man, I think you inspired a lot of people that day.
I say hustle inspires hustle, man.
100%. So, man, I'm super excited for the next event. You want to talk a bit about wholesaling
live
2.0?
Yes, I'm very, very excited for the next event, man. Wholesale Live, for you guys who haven't heard of it before, what we did is we took about 550 people, put them all in a room. We showed them what wholesaling is. We explained what wholesaling is. We showed them how to wholesale by taking the top industry performers in each genre, if you will. For example, for good data, we use PropStream. For skip tracing, we got to skip trace deals. For a good VA company, we talk to all those performers, and we get someone like RJ Bates or Eric Klein and say, hey, this is how we cold call. And then we make the entire audience cold call. Now, there's different tiers to Wholesale Live. There's General Mission, there's VIP, and there's Elite. General Mission was cold calling leads. VIP were cold calling warm leads, and the Elites were cold calling PPC leads. Different values for different tiers, right? But it was so cool to see the entire audience cold calling and actually applying what they learned just in the last 2-3 hours, right? A lot of people never made their first phone call. A lot of people heard of wholesaling but didn't really fully understand it. So it was a really good event, right? When they got there, when you tell someone to do something in front of other people, a lot of people start freaking out, right? They start freaking out. They want to go to the restroom or to the bathroom or the hallway. What we actually did is we actually had security at the door, close the doors, and tell people go back to their seats and make their phone call. So that first 5-10 minutes, it was kind of an awkward silence, right? One phone call here, one phone call there. Eventually, when people started hearing the guy next to him, oh, that dude got cussed out on the phone. Now, if he can do it, I can do it. And next thing you know, the entire audience turned to a loud war. People were jumping up and down. People were crying that they got their first deal on the contract. Last year, we had 17 contracts at Wholesale Live within a span of 3 to 4 hours. This year, bigger, better, bolder. We've already had so many ticket sales. We have people come from different countries. Someone just bought a ticket coming from Israel. They're flying in from Israel just to attend Wholesale Live. So it's crazy how to see the span of how this event's really changing the way. And Wholesale Live, sub 2.0. We're going to dabble in sub twos, talk about sub twos. My goal would be nice for somebody to get a sub two under contract and walk away with this event owning a house. We got 17 contracts last year. We're expecting double the contracts. It's a bigger venue, bigger, better, bolder. It's going to be on the Riverwalk. For you guys not familiar with San Antonio, one of our main attractions is the Riverwalk. The hotel is actually on the Riverwalk. If you guys are doing the elite package, you get to go to dinner with all the other elite individuals, the speakers, the sponsors, myself, Charles, the HPHS crew. We're going to have dinner the first night. We're going to have dinner the second night. We're going to have a mastermind the third day. So the link's a different link. So the link is wholesalelive.io. So you can check out the different packages with General Mission, VIP, and Elite. If I can recommend one, I would recommend at least VIP. But I get it. It costs money to do all this. You want to at least get your foot in the door, go ahead and do General Mission. But if you're in a position, I would try to at least do VIP. You kind of get the most bang for your buck. And to make the deal even sweeter, Kai, because you're so gracious to me, having me on your podcast, if you guys are watching and you want to use the code Syndicate, I will get you a discount on those tickets, right? So there's General Mission, there's VIP, and there's Elite. So when you go to that website, you'll see the differences. Pick the one that's the best to your ability, and then apply action. Come to this event, September 15, 16, with an open mind, understand wholesaling. I'm literally bringing industry performers all into one room. The top industry individuals per genre, per category, PropStream, InvestLift, VA companies, cold calling companies, understand the process. My real estate attorney, Allison Tipton, will be there to talk to about sub twos is different when you hear from me, when you hear from Charles, when you hear from Pace Morby as an investor, when you hear from an attorney, right? From an attorney who's the biggest Texas attorney closing sub two deals, you want to hear the legalities of it, right? It's different from when a legal standpoint and say, hey, these are sub twos. Maybe talk to me about due on sale. Talk to me about the seller. Can the seller buy another house? So we're definitely gonna have her on board. It's gonna be a really great event, man. We got 2 headliners coming in. We're gonna announce our first headliner on Wednesday, and then we got a second headliner coming in. It's gonna be a really great event. People are gonna learn how to wholesale, and they're actually gonna do it on the spot live.
Man, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm super hyped, man. I mean, last year was dope, and I know you guys are gonna do better this year. So, man, I think I don't think you can get better testimonial, man. Someone goes and says, "Oh, I went to this event." Like, "Oh, cool. What happened?" Like, "Oh, yeah, I ended up with a house."
Yeah, that's the testimony we're looking for, man. Sub twos. I mean, it's not that hard to get a sub two. There's a lot of people out there that are in a certain type of position where they need to sell, but they can't sell. Our goal is to find them. Our goal is to teach you how we find them. And our goal is for you guys to learn how to do it and actually apply it so you guys can start creating your own portfolio like I did.
100%, man. Yes, yeah, definitely grab your tickets. I'm going to be there. So for everyone who uses promo code Syndicate, I'm going to give you guys also a free hour coaching call with me. And I'm going to rent the space out the day after. So if you guys want to stay the day after, we're going to break down all the stuff we learned from all the speakers and then how we're going to apply that. So make sure you use promo code Syndicate, and we're going to do all that. And I'll find some other bonuses for you guys too.
Okay.
But yeah, man, I'm hyped. So yeah, so let's get into the Q&A portion. Before we do that, any final thoughts or anything else you want to share with people?
No, I think we kind of said it throughout the entire podcast, man. Foundation, real estate's a great foundation. Use it, learn, grow with it. Be an open tool. Don't just be a one-trick pony about wholesaling. Learn how to get creative. Learn about sub twos. Structure a team, right? You can do so much as one person. You can do even more people. You can do even more as 3 people, 4 people, or 18 people. Wholesale live. We talk about wholesale live and sub twos, man. Let's get into the Q&A.
I love it. All right, man. So yeah, if anyone else has any questions, drop them in there. I know we get a few in there, but make sure to drop them. We'll make sure we get them answered for you guys. So we got a bunch of people saying, "What's up? Appreciate you guys hopping on." We got, all right. So I think it's Llanas. She asked, how do you get started with finding sub two deals?
If someone's getting started, find sub two deals. My trick is, I don't share this often, man. I don't share this often, but my trick is you can go on the MLS, right? And I do this probably once a month or so. Go on the MLS, and I look for all the houses that were built in the last 18 months that are already listed for whatever reason. So there's houses, if you go on MLS now, if you go on MLS in San Antonio, we're in San Antonio, guys. If you go on San Antonio MLS, there's a house that was just sold 4 months ago that's already on the MLS. Why they buy and sell so quick? Divorce, right? Change a job, change the relocation. The fastest sub two I ever bought was a lady bought a house. 3 months later, she had to sell. The reason she wanted to sell in 3 months is because their job that she's been at with years offered a position at a different state. She didn't know that. She bought the house. 3 months later, she had to go. She didn't want nothing to do with it. She just wanted out. So that's one. 2, it's always easiest is the pre-mortgage foreclosure. Often the people are behind on notes. You can get information like how the house is, how the loan is, how much they're behind. They're motivated. They need to sell. They really don't have no option. And number 3 is realtors. Every single realtor I talk to, I always tell them 2 things. 1, send me your pocket listings. If you guys know what a pocket listing is typically those houses that are ugly, dirty, stinky houses that really don't belong on MLS. Sellers wants out fast. Pocket listings. And number 2, every time I talk to a realtor, hey, what are you doing with those houses that have little to no equity? I have an offer for those guys, and I can pay you a potential commission up to 3%.
I love that. And then so follow-up question for you. So I know something a lot of people I see struggle with and ask questions about is, so when you're talking to the realtor, how do you explain it to the realtor what a subject to is, or it's kind of the same thing we talked about before? Or how do you approach that?
So a lot of realtors, man, are a little more hesitant, right? Sellers are open-minded because they don't really know. They're a blank canvas, if you will. Realtors kind of stick to the, hey, FHA loan, VA loan, and they want to start dropping the word in assumable. Assumable is similar to it, but not the same as a sub two. So I just kind of educate them, answer the questions kind of one by one. The cool thing is I've had one realtor who's probably something like in the last 5 years, he's probably something about 1 deal a year. I pay him his commission, he's happy, and we've done this so many times that he's already telling the seller, hey, this is what to expect and this is what it is. Also, when we're closing our sub 2 deals, we have like a 20 paragraph disclosure. The seller needs to initial next to each paragraph, understanding what they're getting themselves into. But yeah, when it comes to realtor, just educate, just like the seller, right? Just educate them. Don't think of it as a hassle. Think of it as I'm educating one realtor. Eventually, they're going to bring me a deal, or eventually they understand it. They'll tell another realtor, and I'll get 2 deals. So education is key.
100%. That's great. All right. So what else we got? We got says so helpful. Love the solutions to overcome due on sale. So much great information here. Someone else said. Someone said, can you drop the link to the course? Do you have the link for your course? I can drop that in there for them later. You want to shoot that to me?
Yeah, I can share it to you somehow.
Yeah. Or do you know the, or you want to say it too?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to mr-hustle.com, so mr-hustle.com, and I'll take you to the link.
Cool. Yeah, I'll drop that in the comments for everyone too. If you guys want it, just let me know. All right, cool. Said yes, good info. Some crypto fam on YouTube said I've closed a few deals, but I've hit a wall this year. Any recommendations?
I would say, what's the contents of the wall? What do you think the wall is? And just target the wall, right? With its lead, with its, I mean, that's a big general statement, right? It could be your motivation, it could be your data, it could be your staff. So I would just need more information, like what exactly the wall contains. But just like I said earlier, you have someone like Frank who kind of oversees everything. I can pull up on a dashboard and say, hey, compare this number to last month, or compare this number to 6 months ago. There's a big difference. So now we can key point into our key figures, or our KPIs, if you will, to understand our KPIs, to adjust and move forward. So
I think a lot of people too, I know, just will assume, because I don't know if he's still on here, but if you are, can you drop a comment and clarify on that? But say it's mindset. Do you ever struggle with mindset? When we're starting, do you struggle with mindset, or any fixes on that?
When it comes to mindset, man, I'll be honest with you, man, that's like my weakest belief. For years, I really never considered anything about mindset. I just, my own motivation is my own hustle. I never really sat into mindset and listened to this book, and that's just me personally. But don't take again, sometimes if people consider me a guru or influencer, sometimes I don't say the right things, man. Like I say, blow your money and then learn. When it comes to mindset, for years, I still kind of have a problem with it personally. But I counteract with Frank, and Frank is a really big on mindset, really big on motivation, really big on goals, and setting in plans and action, especially when it comes to the guys on the staff. So he's my mindset man. If that makes sense. Me personally, I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. I have enough hustle for myself that I can keep moving. But not everyone's like me, right? Everyone needs some type of vision. Frank likes to do vision boards, and I can see how it helps. But maybe if I did do it, maybe I'd be further along. Who knows?
Yeah. I love that, man. That's great. And I think just one, too. I don't think it's one size fits all for everybody. So I think you got to find out what works for you. Cool. So we got so that's one. Just try to ask. He said, who did he start wholesaling? I guess so. When, maybe it meant when. So who did he start wholesaling? When did you start wholesaling? I guess maybe this question.
First wholesale deal was probably about 9 years ago. About 9 years ago. Once we remember, I was telling you about the flips. We had about 3-4 flips using our own money, not private money. Now we got smart, using private money, hard money, making money on other people's money. But I was in a position where I had 3-4 flips all at once using my money, and a deal came to me, and that's when we kind of put 2 and 2 together. Remember, there was not 9 years ago. There was no Podio, there was no SMS, there's no ringless voicemails, there's no VA company cold calling, there's no scripts. So I don't want to say we're the pioneers, but we've been around for a long time. Where, back then it was just a pen and paper to where we're at today with KPIs and numbers, and Invest Lift that helps us out, MailChimp sending out emails, SMS going out, letters, batted signs. It's a big operation. But the question is, when did I start? It was 9 years ago, and a lot's changed in 9 years. So a lot will continue to change, right? I don't know if you guys know about SMS. There's legalities of texting people out of mass spaces, and we'll get a lot of deals from SMS. Stay up to date on the legalities of everything you're doing.
Are you guys doing anything now to kind of pivot for that SMS changes?
I'll go back to my standard answer. Talk to Frank.
Yeah, I know I have to get Frank on here.
Get Frank on here, man. Frank, I get on the face, man. But Frank really runs the office the day-to-day before it's announced. That would be a good guy.
Yeah.
Podcast with.
No, I love that, man. That'd be great. But awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you guys. Man, I appreciate you for hopping on and sharing so much
Sure,
great
man.
info. Man, that's a
No,
lot of
I've
value.
been on podcasts in a long time, man. I typically turn down podcasts, but
Mhm.
for you, man, I gotta do one for you. That's the last time I did a podcast. Oh man, 2 years? Yeah, about,
Oh, shit.
about a year and a half, 2 years. I typically turn them down, man. An hour of time just chit chatting, but I definitely appreciate you, Kai, man. I appreciate all your support. I see you doing a lot here in San Antonio, and I see you doing a lot with the syndicate. I appreciate your support with Wholesale Live, man. So I had to hop on here, man, and share some value with you guys.
Man, I appreciate you, man. And I feel honored that.
By the way, man, I don't know if you see me, man. I have a sore throat, man. I've been coughing all week and I'm having a hard time catching my breath. That's why. But I'm good.
Well, I appreciate you still coming on, man. So I'm sure a lot of people already follow you, but for anyone who doesn't, what's the best way for people to connect with you online and on social?
Let's just start with Instagram, man. Instagram is probably the easiest.
Mhm.
Instagram is at Turn Up the Hustle. And then once you follow me on Instagram, everything will kind of go from there. From Facebook to TikTok to all that.
Awesome, man. Well, I highly recommend giving him a follow. He always drops a bunch of great content. And man, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate everybody for tuning in live, and hope everybody has a great day.